So how did it go? Talk me through a little bit about how the exam went and how you're feeling right now.
Yeah, no, the exam. I mean, so starting off, I went to the center, and I'm really glad that I'd watched the videos that you put up about what to expect at the center.
Yep.
It is very formal and it's very controlled.
Yep.
And I probably would have been put off guard if I hadn't watched those videos. So I kind of knew what to expect in terms of the pat down and the search and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's easy. I don't know about you, but when you kind of know what's happening,
Yeah.
it's easy to kind of put your mind into the mindset that says, okay, I know what I have to go through, so just relax. It's going to happen. Let it go. And so that's what I did. Just went with the flow, and it was really actually not too intrusive.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that went quite easy. And then started the exam. I was actually feeling really confident. I loved your videos on the EV calculations.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, during the week, I'd watched the one that you did with the rhymes.
Yeah.
And whilst I had a good chuckle watching the video, the thing was that even though those things were so silly, it's that stuck in my head, right? So I kind of had memorized that stuff before getting to the paper. So the last 2 or 3 days, I would start each session before I even got the accelerator going and just write down the chart.
Cool.
So when I got to the exam, I didn't feel pressure to do a memory dump. I did get the board and I wrote down my formula in the first few minutes, but I wasn't sitting there crammed with stuff in my head trying to get it down on the paper. I was really relaxed, wrote down my formulas and got going. So
Nice.
it was really good. The exam was it was good. I used the whole 4 hours.
Yeah.
I did the same technique that you talked to around the Scott de Drury thing. I
Yeah.
when I first started, I took my 200 and I just broke them into 25 questions each. So I more or less know 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes. And I was just checking myself against my chart.
Yeah.
I was kind of running on time, actually. If I got to a question after the first pass and didn't get it, I kind of guessed the answer I thought was the closest, struck out the others and flagged it.
Good idea.
And my thinking was that if I had to come back or I lost time, I'd at least put something in.
Yep.
And then I took the 10-minute break. I didn't realize that they kind of stop you at just before the 10 minutes and ask you some questions. And I kind of sat on the screen. And so I lost a few minutes of time because I could have actually just gone off the screen.
Yep.
10 minutes was awesome. It helped me to just refocus.
Yeah.
So I was just under 100 questions at that point. I was 90 something questions.
Mm-hmm.
I was feeling okay at that point.
Good.
And then the second half, I had a few long ones and spent a little bit of time on some of them. So I was against the time. So I finished literally with about 3 minutes to go.
Okay.
And then I clicked the submit button. And it seemed to take forever for the screen to come up. Congratulations, you've achieved a good thing. And I sat staring at the screen for a few seconds, blinking. Did I pass? Yes, I passed. And then I clicked off it. I was expecting to see the sort of breakdown.
Yeah.
And because I didn't, and asked me if I wanted to do a survey, I kind of then wasn't sure that I just lose it now. I didn't lose it.
Oh no. Yeah.
So when I went out to the sort of individuator, Proctor, and he said, "Oh no, you're all good," and it went through. It was awesome, really awesome.
Oh wow. That's really, really great. That's great. Well, we're proud of you, and you did a lot of work. And we've only known each other for I don't know how long. How long have we known each other now? Approximately
a week. Yeah,
a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, a week. So that's good. I mean, talk to your experience, kind of what it was like, what you were feeling like before the accelerator. Kind of talk me through that, if you don't mind, please.
Yeah, I wasn't feeling very confident at all. I'd done one of these bootstrap things.
Yeah,
a few months ago. Well, at the time, because you don't know anything, you think it's good, right? Because they're just taking you through a bunch of stuff. But having been through your course, there's no ways I would have passed this having gone through the other bootstrap, because the bootstrap pretty much just followed the PMBOK route, which is take you through each domain or knowledge area as a knowledge area. And when you do that, you don't really understand the flow. So coming into the course, I'd been a while ago on the bootstrap, wasn't feeling confident, did the base mark, and I think I got 60% or something like that, which was not great, obviously. The one just before I wrote on Sunday was the 200 questions, 92%. So pretty much in just over a week, I went from 60% to 90%. To be fair though, I did crunch some hours. I did all the work you'd put in the accelerator, I did all the homework, I went through all the John case studies, and I was still working a full day. So I was up every night till 11 o'clock. But to me, it was important to get the exam done, right? So the 4 hours or 5 hours, I told you when we first connected, I'm committed and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get there. It was awesome. I mean, if you had full time to study this, you could literally do sort of half a day to 3/4 of a day at a much more leisurely pace, and everything you need to know in the exams in that accelerator. Really good.
That's awesome. Well, I'm glad it went good for you, and you still were able to work. So that's good. You were able to work. You know, you had to put in some extra time, no big deal. But 7 days and it's over, and now you can go back to normal life.
Done. So at the moment, I'm
Yeah,
running $100 million program, which chows a lot of my time. And that's why I was a bit concerned about doing this and doing the PMP in the evenings. I was able to do it. And I you know, there's a couple of things I think that stood out for me in the accelerator course. The first 2 days, you go through a really good overview of the processes. And I think that is really good foundational stuff. And then I think, I mean, it's all good, right? But I think on about day 5, you do the 7 flows. I think that's probably the best way I've ever seen someone explain something like that ever. I mean, once I got that, it really clicked in terms of how things worked. The information flow was really awesome. I mean, I was struggling with all the IDOs and whatever, and when you went through the information flow and I actually understood why I'm going from this to that to this, where it's generated, who looks after it. Even the little picture of the crazy dude holding the thing. I mean, when I'm in the exam, I was seeing that kind of stuff. It was really good. Really, really good.
That's awesome.
Your video on the EV stuff, I would have tried to memorialize 20 formulas if I hadn't watched that video. And like I said, after watching that, I had a good chuckle going through it. But the thing is, that's what made me remember it, right? And it was no pressure getting to the exam. I didn't feel like I had this memory dump I had to cram down on a piece of paper. It was actually writing it down while I was thinking about other things. Really good.
Yeah. We're going to move that, or I'm going to this morning. I'm going to take the 7 flows thing and also do it again on the day, like 2 or 3, just to I'm going to put it in there maybe twice to say the first time I just want you to see it. And then I want you to think through it. And then we're going to watch it again. And then you're going to learn it more because I don't think it hurts.
That 7 flows thing, I think, is absolutely brilliant. In fact, I think it would even work if you put it up front on the very first day and said, hey, here's an overview of how everything knits together, and then repeated it another once or twice during the process. I think that I really also enjoyed the John videos, to be honest. I mean, you must have put quite a bit of effort into getting those done. And it really simplified working through those, and just seeing sort of real life examples is really good.
All right, good. Yeah, no, that's I wrote the someone in our office did those did the animation for, but I wrote that to myself, like trying to that's what I was making that story up in my head and brain to help me learn the PMP. So yeah, and I think the coolest thing is the way we developed this, or the way I developed the 7 day. I was like, well, what am I going to teach, or how am I going to teach it? And then I realized I've been teaching these individual lessons to students that had real big problems. I don't understand the big picture. I don't understand EVM. I don't understand the flows. I don't understand this. And then I started to just say, well, I have all those lessons that I'll pull to people when they're in bad spots. Why don't I just go down a little deeper, teach them all in a row? And I think the thing that's cool is that it's not like one person talking to you the whole time in a boring way. And it's you get lulled into the same kind of focus over and over.
Yeah, I definitely found one of the things you said in the accelerator was you would go through this in waves. And I definitely found that going through the reviews, and then going through the John stories, and then going through the flows, and then going through the John stories, yeah, that worked really well.
Sorry, I think it
Yeah,
locked up. I apologize.
no worries.
No.
No, I think that went really well. I mean, what I also did was doing the simulator tests were really good.
Yep.
And then when I had when I found areas I didn't understand so well, I was determined I was not going to go back to any of the notes I'd made or that PMBOK book.
Hmm.
I basically went to the videos on your site for each of the topics.
Yeah.
And so initially I struggled with procurement because I think there was a lot of stuff in the beginning on all the baselines, which is really important. And so
Yep.
as you were doing the simulators, there were gaps like procurement or stakeholder management.
Yep.
And I went and watched those videos in between time.
Yep.
And that was really good. So over the day, I was building up knowledge across the core main areas, the baselines, the risk, etc., and
Yep.
then supplementing it with other videos that you had from the series in between.
That's
Yeah,
great.
it was really good.
That's really awesome. All right. So, I mean, you run like $100 million programs, that's a big deal. Like some
Yeah.
people are not in that level, but you are. Do you think that there are things in like going through and getting the PMP and kind of looking at stuff and figuring out how to excel that are going to help you as you run $100 million programs, or you develop project managers or program managers and other things? Anything like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of principles in there that we use, but I think also over time you get into probably bad habits, and there's some things that you should spend more time on and you don't. And so going through the PMP was really good just to kind of get a refresh on some of that stuff.
Mhm.
I also think there's a lot of things you learn to do by experience,
Yeah.
and sometimes just understanding some of the underlying theory. So, a lot of the EV stuff I found really useful. Used to working with cost and schedule variances, etc., but there's a lot more to EV than just those two metrics. So it was
Yeah.
really good to understand some of that in more detail. And to be honest with you,
That's
some of
good.
the things we're doing now around our baseline, going through, I was annoying the PMO person in my office because as I was going through studies, I was going back and saying, hey, we're doing like 95% of this, but on the quality piece, you're missing A, B, C, D. Let's
Oh,
think
wow.
about how we can get a virtual team to look at that, etc. So, yeah, I think it's really good. I mean, if you were looking to become a project manager, this is a really good, solid base to
Mhm.
work from.
That's really
And
great.
then what you build on top of this is just the experience, right?
Yeah, and that's the big thing. Like, and I think the the cool thing is that we have people like from totally different levels. Like in the chat, I don't know how active you are in the chat. You see people who are just, they're green, they're new, and then there's people with super like tons of experience, and they're able to talk to each other and kind of explain things from different levels. So I think that's really
I
great.
did find also a lot of times that sometimes in the real world, your
Mhm.
first instinct wouldn't necessarily be to go to the process.
Mhm.
And so I pretty much, as a way of doing things, like relationships.
Yeah,
And so my first instinct usually is to go to the person and
yeah,
deal with the person. It's not to get the issue log out. But obviously, from an exam perspective, sometimes you have to think a little bit more process driven. But
yep,
I did find that there were quite a lot of questions in the exam scenario also that drove you towards the relationship part,
yeah.
which I found quite refreshing.
I agree.
Um, but forcing you to go down the process route also forces you to kind of think about the process maybe a bit more than you would normally, and
Yeah,
that's good. It's refreshed a lot of things, which is good. Yeah,
yeah, I think
really
so
spoke
too.
about it.
Yeah, and from a practitioner standpoint, it is like the first thing on all these questions. It's like, well, I would talk to them because I really can't, with one sentence, I can't really understand like what their face looks like or what our history's like together, or who I'm
Yeah.
dealing with here, or how big a deal this is. But yeah, we just got to play the game in a sense during these questions. And I think for some of the people that are building skills and haven't been up and down the road, it's a good thing to have both highlighted, both the relationship side and the process side. So I think that's great.
One of the other things I thought was awesome about the 7-day accelerator is you promised me up front you don't have to memorize anything, and I didn't have to memorize anything. I was really concerned when I'd gone through this thing on the first pass, all those IDOs, I mean, 49 processes, then each one of those has got like 20 metrics you've got to figure out, or attributes, that's
Yeah.
like hundreds. I found it really good working through the process that you outlined in terms of where am I, and the process flows really helps you, because once you know where you are,
Yeah.
you can right off the bat eliminate a number of the questions which are just the wrong place, doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that leaves you literally with one answer. Sometimes it leaves you in the 50-50 boat. And just knowing where you are in the flow helps you to understand some of the questions. But I also think that helps you in real life too, right? Because sometimes when you get stuck in things, you actually need to just pause and ask yourself, where am I in the middle of my execution right now? And is what this person asking for something I should be on top of? Is it something that's coming up? Is it something I should have done already?
Yeah.
And so you kind of do ask yourself those questions in real life as well.
That's
So it's good. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is really, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it was like it's a good way to frame people's brains. Cause like when I'm working with people and they're going through questions, they're not, I don't know, they're not thinking like, and so sometimes it's like to slow down to be like, okay, you can answer a question before you get to the end. Like, are you good enough to just know where you are? That's the first step. And like you said, and then think about what should I be doing and all that stuff. And then by the time you get to the answer, you go like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that seems about right. Or about 50-50. So I think
Yeah.
that's
No,
great.
exactly.
That's really good.
That's exactly spot on. Yeah.
Now you like we're on different sides of the world. You were able to go to some of the coaching calls and stuff. Did you find it helpful to kind of go through live things with people, or how did you
Yeah.
like the question solving stuff?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed that. It's unfortunate I couldn't connect to all of them, but I did the ones in the evening with Rachel and then a bunch of peers that were kind of going through the same process.
Yep.
I really liked the format of running through your thinking. One, it kind of puts you a bit under pressure, and
Yeah.
so if you're not used to that, it's really good because you are a little bit under pressure in the exam, so it kind of simulates some of that pressure. It's a really safe space, so no one's judging anyone. Everyone's learning, everyone's listening, and in fact, Rachel was extremely encouraging, which is really great. I mean, I didn't expect anything less, but she's awesome.
Yeah.
And it was good to listen to other people's thinking, because sometimes you'd be listening to them and going, I hear what you're thinking, but that's not right. This is right. And sometimes you'd be right and sometimes you'd be wrong. And before they submit the question, they'll ask the rest of the group, what do you think? Sometimes there were some really good decisions and debates. Sometimes the person would change their mind. Sometimes they wouldn't.
Yeah.
And then you'd all see the answer. And sometimes it was, yep, we all knew that. Or sometimes there's a bit of a, oh,
Yeah.
that's what they're asking. But
Yeah.
I found the process really useful. It was a good way to test your thinking.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think when you're speaking out loud, you tend to think about where you're at. And so just running those things verbally out loud in front of others focuses you. And I did that in the exam, to be really honest with you. I sat and pretended I was in one of those coaching sessions.
Yeah.
I was whispering so that no one else would hear me. And I had noise cancelling things on, so I could hear myself almost whispering inside my head. But each one of those things, I started reading the end of the question, what is the project manager doing next? And then I'd go back and read through the question, and then I'd read through the answers. And I used to strike through to go, nope, don't like that one. Nope, don't like that one.
Yeah.
And then answered whichever one I liked. So I was almost running that same simulation in my head.
That's good.
And I think one of the things when you're under pressure is the more things you have that your mind can attach itself to, the more at ease you can feel. And so those first 20 or 30 questions, you are a little bit out of your comfort zone. But as you say, move through them quickly.
Yeah.
And then I followed the same process we did with Rachel, to be honest with you. The only thing I didn't do was pause to listen to anyone else's feedback. I just question. It was really good. It's really good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad it worked. I think I'm going to use that in a podcast as soon as we finish this interview about how to handle stress, about how to have like structures to build off of. So
you need hook points. It's really good.
belief that is right or wrong, and then if we can attack it in a positive way and work through it and challenge it, then they're like, oh, I'll never miss that from that angle again. So we are, and the cool thing is you become like, I'm not in those calls, obviously. Rachel's in the calls. She's a fresh successful student who's just like taken to it really well, and we got 12 other ones, so like it's exploding. We're running those like every day, multiple times a day, which is great. But one of the things that we found was she and the others, I started throwing them in to say like, hey, you're good enough, coach each other while you're doing it. That's how I came up with the concept. Because like normally other programs are like, you have to deal with this stuffy professor who can only meet you in office hours for 30 minutes on a Tuesday. Nah, it's like we have coaching sessions running all day long. And the thing is, she's working through with you. And I think a lot of the conversations are, we try to use the Socratic method as much as possible, where we're like asking you, like, tell me what you think and like walk me through it, so that you're not leaning on that crutch of like the instructor, you're leaning on your own brain, and sometimes the brain's not there. So we have built it up. So
yeah, but I think that works really well. I mean, if I think of Rachel's actual involvement in the session, she's a brilliant facilitator because she kind of gives you the space. So she's actually not doing a lot, which is actually what is right.
Yeah.
And you're doing most of the thinking and the talking. So you're going through a process, and that process actually embeds in your head. So when I was in the exam and you're running through a scenario around a stakeholder question, etc., and you get through it, and the part of your brain goes, hold on, I remember we had something similar and we all said it was going to be this, but actually it wasn't, it was that because of, and so that whole thought goes through your head. And so even though the question's different, the scenario is different, because you'd practiced that, you'd heard the thinking, you'd gone through the debate, you'd got the question maybe wrong, whatever, that thinking sticks there. And to me, it's that exponential experience that's way more important than just memorizing the Ido. And that's why I think the approach you've got is really good, right? It's, don't worry about memorizing the facts. Think about where you are in the process, what you'd be doing in real life, and work from that basis. And that's way better than, I mean, any time in your life you can open a book and read an Ido, right? It's not about that.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And the thing that's so great is like, how good did you do? Like you did pretty darn well, right? You sent it to me this morning. We're opposite times, so it's early over here. How good did you do in the exam?
Three above targets and 2 on targets. And to be honest with you, I was just going for pass. So anything more than that was, and considering I had just over a week to get from sort of 60% knowledge to where I got to, I thought that was phenomenal. I mean, I will say that you need to put the hours in, obviously. You've got to be dedicated and do the work. But if somebody just follows the program, does the stuff, works through the videos, it's not excessive. I didn't open the PMBOK book at all. I didn't open any other study guides, any other notes. And the only thing, like I said earlier, was I used some of your other videos as just supplementaries on some of the missing pieces that I was struggling with in the questions, so reading through them, going through them. And the simulator was really good. I mean, the questions were good and they were fairly similar to what I got in the exam. But what's good about them is getting the answers wrong for those, and then being able to see why, and then going back into your videos and going to the library and going, okay, here's the video on that topic. Let me work through that video. So as I said up front, I was determined not to read any paperwork. I prefer to learn visually anyway. So yeah, I must have watched that 7 flows of yours probably, I don't want to exaggerate now, but maybe 5, 6, 7 times.
Shit. If you watched it 5 or 6, 7, how many were you going to exaggerate to? 73 times?
Yeah, no, I did watch it. I watched it a lot. I mean, I watched it on that evening. The next evening, at the end of the homework, I spent another hour and watched it again. On the Saturday, I did a mock exam in the morning, and I watched that video in the afternoon again. On the Sunday, I did a mock exam. I watched the video in the afternoon again, and then last night before the exam, I watched it maybe 5 times, 6 times, but to me, it was the one video I found. I mean, they were all good, but that one was, it's an hour, 20 minutes, I think, which is, reasonable length. And it pretty much covers all the deliverables, all the outputs, where you are, why you're there. And if you've worked through the John stories and the others, you've got the knowledge. It's just helping you recall that knowledge. It's really good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Phew, that's good. Well, Andrew, I'm really keep going. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
No, I'm stoked. I'm really happy. That's really good.
That's amazing. Well, I'm really, really proud of you. I think it's really good. I'm so glad that you were able to kind of get in with 7 days. And I love the fact that and it's called a 7-day accelerator. So you did 7 days. And that's the fun part, that you had a certain amount of knowledge. You didn't feel confident, but we know it was in there. I mean, you're running big things. So we just had to organize it, shoot it through, and then you did super well, and that's about all
But
we can ask for.
I think even somebody that didn't have that experience could do the same thing, because really the exam and getting through the exam is not just about experiences, etc. It's about organizing the material into a way that makes sense. And I think that's what your course does. It's taking the processes, it's taking all those flows, and it's making sense of them. So I think even if somebody didn't have experience, even if somebody was, 2 or 3 years into project management, so they were able to qualify to do the PMI, had been managed sort of small or medium-sized things, your course helps to orientate the material in a way that makes it easy to understand. So for me, that's really what got through the 7 days.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Cause it can be super stressful to be like, I have 7 days, I have 6 days, I have 5 days, I have 4 days. You can start spinning. But I mean, I think the good thing is we laid it out in days and just said, hey, just worry about today. Let's go into the next one. And each day builds, we're making some tweaks to make it better. But yeah, it's been super, super effective. So
it has been. And each day it does build. In fact, just what you said happens the opposite. Each day you build stronger and stronger instead of feeling worse and worse.
Yeah.
And each day, because you're doing some tests, you're getting better at the tests, and that builds confidence.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of getting through the exam also is starting at a point of confidence.
Yes.
Not a point of arrogance, but a point of confidence.
Yeah.
Knowing that, hey, I've done X number of simulators, I've done a bunch of the coursework, I understand these things, I've worked through some problems. It was really good. I think starting with the right level of confidence, those first few questions are tough, but just settling into running them like you do in the coaching sessions, yeah, it just works. Really awesome. Does. Awesome. Thank you, dude.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Andrew. All right. Well, you got to get back to work, I'm sure, or late there, but I really appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on, and it was a lot of fun. So thanks a lot, man. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.